Welcome to the Reality Revolution. I'm your host, Brian Scott, and this is dedicated to all those spirits out there who believe life is meant to be magical and fun. Here we venture to share the very mysteries of self and reality. My purpose is to help light that spark inside of you, to reawaken your sense of fascination and awe towards the world. I'm going to try to help you hack reality and unleash your potential and open unlimited possibilities of wealth, health, and relationships in your life. Welcome to the Reality Revolution. I'm so excited today. I got Shlomo Friedman, and we are going to talk about all aspects of consciousness, reality transurfing, reality creation. Shlomo Friedman has a YouTube channel and some wonderful videos on reality creation that I recommend. The links will be associated with this episode. And I have learned a lot. I think his journey and experience is very similar to mine. We're going to talk about that. But hello, Shlomo. How are you doing today?
Hey, Brian. When people ask me that question, I say I'm always good, and I mean it.
All right. Well, when I first really got interested in reality transurfing and went on Facebook, Shlomo and I, we share a lot of the same interests and ideas. And so, once I read reality transurfing, my world really changed and my understanding of it. And I wanted to ask you, first of all, about reality transurfing, how you first became aware of it and how it's affected your understanding and of reality and how it's affected you.
Well, I received the link to the book from a friend, friend that's also interested in this kind of things. And he said, you have to read this. To be honest with you, I never finished reading the book, the first one.
Yeah.
It syncs with many ideas that I have, but I think it's at a different level, not higher or lower, but it's in a different space. It's more of it's filling a space in a big puzzle. It's not by itself solving the whole puzzle.
Right, exactly. So then let's go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, what Vadim is really doing is talking about the end result and how the end result happens from the action which is before the end result. But he does not really go into anything that's beyond that or deeper than that. And maybe on purpose, because as it is, it's very complicated. I think most people don't really grasp everything he's saying. And I also think, and I think I put a post on that once, that everything he's saying can be put on one page.
Right, that's true. It's both complicated and simple at the same time.
Yeah, because he's got 700 pages in that first book. And I think you can say it all in one page. Basically what I think the most important thing he's saying in the book is that he compares it to going to the mailbox and fetching the newspaper in the morning.
Right.
And he says that if you want to create a reality, it has to happen the same way.
Right.
So you when you go to fetch the newspaper, you don't have any thoughts and hesitation and conflicts. You just know you're going to get up and go to the mailbox and there's a newspaper there, you'll bring it home.
Right.
If you can relate to everything you do that way, then you can create any reality you want.
Right.
So that's another important thing on his website. He says that the secret is on the surface.
Right.
And it takes somebody to reveal it to the people, because nobody's really looking at the surface. Everybody's looking somewhere else.
Somewhere other than the surface. Right.
Yeah, they try to dig much deeper because nobody believes that the secret is actually on the surface.
Right. They expect it to be.
Yeah, so I think those are the two most important things about all the books that I read so far.
So let's back away from just reality transurfing, and I just want to get a little bit better idea of your story. When I watched your video, it resonated with me because I had an incident where some people had broken into my house and I was shot at. And I have gone back and tried to understand it. And when I watched your video, and I'll let you tell the story about your car crash and how in that moment you became the neutral observer and you kind of watched it happen. and everything played out perfectly in that moment. And I had the same thing, and I've gone back and understood what happened. How was I able to get through such a crazy experience that was beyond anything that I could fathom? And it was, I had separated in that moment into the neutral observer, and it felt like my reality kind of guided itself. And then when I saw your video and your explanation, when you were kind of talking about reality, it resonated with me. It's very similar, and I just wanted to have you tell that story a little bit, and how you had adjusted through a reality. It was a car. Do you remember which video I'm talking about? Where you
I remember. It's that incident was not what put me on the spiritual path, by the way.
Okay. Well, let's talk about that here as well. But I just wanted to get your just explanation of that, because I found it very fascinating and enlightening. It's something that people need to be aware of when you're having things happen in reality, is how you're guiding it and how your observation of it.
Well, I think, you see, it connects very well to reality transurfing as well, because the way and you probably saw it in my video, the way I explain reality and how we create it, I use a metaphor of an iPad or a tablet, right? And I say, when you draw a line on the tablet with the pen or with your finger, it looks and feels like you're drawing a line on the screen, but you don't.
Right.
Because what you do, you just go over a bunch of sensors that go back into the computer and tell the computer that your finger went over those sensors, and then the computer comes back and draws the line. Reality is exactly the same way. When you do something, you think that you are doing it right? Directly, but you don't. You actually go into call it the universe, the computer in the universe, and you tell it what you want, and it gives you back your reality. It happens in real time, so you don't really see the whole, but the reality is created for you by that computer from the input you give it.
Right.
So that iPad is a very good example. And going back to the car thing, is that what happens is that when you don't provide any input to the universe for whatever reason, then the universe keeps sending you that reality, because if it doesn't send you the reality, you will be dead.
Right.
So it keeps sending you a reality, but at that point, it creates your reality. And when it creates your reality, it's always perfect.
Okay.
Right? Because the universe cannot make mistakes. Again, call it universe, God, it doesn't matter.
Right.
So what happened with the car there, it was January, middle of the winter here in, actually it was in Alberta, which is, it's very cold there, minus 30, I don't know what.
Oh, yeah.
And we were going down a very steep hill from the highest point in the Rockies there. It's called Rogers Pass. And I had a really bad car, like a minivan, unstable.
Right.
And I was going too fast, obviously. And on my right, there was a cliff. At those days, there was no fence there. And on the left, it was only 2 lanes. Me going that way, and the logging trucks were coming up the other way. And as I was going, the car hit black ice, I assume, and it turned 90 degrees. And it kept going at 100 kilometers an hour sideways.
Yeah.
And, at that moment, I lived in Montreal for 6 years, so I kind of know that don't touch the steering wheel and don't touch the brakes, because, especially when you have nowhere to go. And it went that way, and then it hit again, I guess, some spot with no ice, and it turned backwards, meaning that I was going in reverse now.
Wow.
And I had somebody with me, otherwise I would think maybe I was dreaming.
Right.
And we were going in reverse at very high speed, not seeing where we're going, right? Because we look forward.
Right.
And what happened to me is that I disconnected. I observed the whole thing as if it's happening to somebody else. I did not get any emotions about it. I was just sitting there and looking. And it looked like it took forever, but my friend says it only was like maybe 2 minutes, the whole thing. And then, the road looped back, and we ended up going on that big plateau, which was a collection point for all the snow from the whole area. And we hit that mountain of snow in reverse with our car. We created kind of a tunnel in it, 30-foot tunnel,
Right.
And the car stopped, and it was silence. And,
everything was okay.
Yeah, it was a 4-wheel drive, so we drove out of it facing the other way. We turned around and we drove back to Vancouver.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is when you don't get involved, because if I did anything at that moment, I would be dead.
Right.
But if you don't get involved, it means that somebody else takes care of you. So
Right.
if you're religious, you can say, yeah, God saved me. You can put it whichever way you like. But I like to apply it to this reality creation thing.
Right.
And I think it's, you know.
Very powerful.
I'll give you another example quickly for
Sure,
for the same thing. You know, when I was a kid, maybe 11 years old, I like to do things that I shouldn't be doing. And somebody at night saw me. I lived in a village in Israel, and the owner saw me that I'm trying to open his car. Because I like to play with cars, not stealing anything, just going to the car, because those days cars were very not common. And this guy was huge, and he was very scary, and he started chasing me. And I ran into the fields, because it was a village, into a field and into an orchard, you know, and I couldn't see anything. It was dark. But because I disconnected, somehow my legs found the right place. I never fell. I ran maybe for a kilometer, very fast, and I never fell. And why I say it's the same thing, because I didn't look. I just ran.
Right.
Somehow the universe made sure that I'm running the right way and I'm not falling and not hitting anything, right? So it's similar. I disconnected from my feet, from legs.
Right. So tell us a little more about your original awakening that you had mentioned before, and how like you just mentioned. I'd love to hear more about that.
Well, what happened, you know, I was married with two boys, and somehow I woke up one day 30 some years ago, and I decided to smash the whole thing.
Right.
And when I did it, I started to see the consequences.
Right.
And I got very, very depressed and very scared, like, what the hell did I do? And I couldn't reverse it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I was in almost like a near-death experience situation.
Right.
For me, mentally. And at that point, I changed. I became a different person. Because up until that time, I couldn't care about anything but money, cars, you know, power. Nothing spiritual or emotional. Like, you know, and from that point, somehow I changed. I became very sensitive, very emotional, very, very sensitive to things. And then this is where my journey started.
Mm-hmm.
What actually put me on the path where I am today is I went to see somebody that people recommended to me in Israel, somebody who, you know, is like a psychic.
Right.
I think it's a very powerful one. And when I met that person, his abilities, I could not comprehend. Like, it didn't fit into any theory or knowledge or anything that I knew.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, I decided that there is more to reality, or to call it to life, than what I've ever seen. And I decided that I want to get deeper into it and find out what it is. And this is really what put me on that path.
Right.
Then I had there was a period of few years after that I went to see every psychic or everybody that just to see what is this phenomenon, right? And some of them told me things, you know, about myself that I guess made me pursue this path where I am today. And over time, I think probably about five years ago, what happened is that, you know how I said that the secret is on the surface.
Right.
So I'll give it to you in a nutshell how I see it, like what is the secret.
Okay.
You see, of course, there is a certain theory that I'm basing everything on, and it doesn't mean that everybody will accept my theory or connect with it, but this is how I see, right? How I see it. So I believe that there is a creator, God, call it, supreme intelligence, doesn't matter. I believe that there is such a thing.
Right.
I believe that supreme intelligence at one point was without all this reality we live in. There was only that supreme intelligence.
And nothing else.
Nothing else. And it existed in nothingness as far as matter goes. Because intelligence or consciousness does not need matter.
Right.
The matter is created here so that we can experience a different type of reality. So I believe that supreme intelligence, being a supreme intelligence, decided that it wants to experience because it wants it has curiosity. Being an intelligence, it has a need to experience things that it didn't experience before in an extreme way. So the most extreme way to experience something different would be to create matter. Because if you are in nothingness, you have no time, you have you have nothing.
Right.
You have only your thoughts, right?
You're the void.
Yeah. So if you go into this kind of a reality like we have, it's exactly the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be the most extreme experience, the most interesting experience, right?
Right. If you had been in the void all that time, to experience the opposite is exactly like you're describing.
Yeah. Exactly. So this is where we are, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the interesting thing is, and this is a bombshell, but only if I can relate to you what I mean.
Right.
Is look at it this way. If you are God and you want to experience what Brian is going through,
mm-hmm.
right? That means you have to be in Brian.
Right.
But there is no way you can know that you are God. Because otherwise you cannot experience.
Once you know, then it's over. So
exactly. Once you know, it's over.
Knowing
like
is
somebody
the key.
says, come, I'll show you what's an experience of a jail. We'll put you in there for 5 minutes and you come out. Well,
right.
you cannot experience it. Unless you know that you are in there for 10 years, that's the only way you're going to experience it, right?
Right.
So if you look at where we are today, this is exactly the situation.
Mm-hmm.
We are all gods.
We got a spark of God inside of us, all of us.
But we don't know it, because the minute we will know it, like you say, game over.
Game over. We purposely don't know. I like the analogy that Vadim uses, the water droplet that forms in the cloud that, for this long period of time is going down, 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 and that's our lives, and then it just hits the ocean. And the ocean is where we came from in the first place.
Well, there are two interesting questions that come up here. Is did God actually immerse himself completely in this reality, knowing that if everything explodes here, we have a nuclear war? In any case, he will go back to be God. He's not going to die.
Right.
But in the meantime, he totally cut himself off from what they call the Godhead, or like there is nothing else out there, like just us.
Right.
Or is it a duality where God somehow split itself and okay, so that's
I love this question, and I would love to go deeper on it, and it's fun to think about. And so is there a point where, and even Vadim in 78 Days of Transurfing has the story where God wakes up and forgets who he was or she was, and so there's this point, purposely God has forgotten. Possibly, maybe he knows that. It makes me think of an old science fiction novel, The Dune Messiah. Frank Herbert had a character in it that had the memories of everybody and everything that ever lived in the universe, and outside of time could literally experience all those different memories and experiences. And when you describe that, there's always, and I've heard that, of course, that's a very believable and common belief, and I think that I'm in agreement with you. But it makes me think, there's this other dimension where God is just playing through all of our lives, enjoying all of them, experiencing all of them, and maybe that's what he's doing right now. I love that analogy and thought that it's very absolutely true. And so there is no bad experience to God. It doesn't matter what terrible things we go through or good things. It's all just a different experience.
Absolutely, 100%.
Suffering is good because it's a different experience. It's
all
of it.
Experiences,
We think
and the more
it's
extreme,
terrible,
the better.
right? Yeah, the more extreme, God wants to eat all the food. He wants to have all the experiences. He wants the good and bad, and that's why we have such contrast and so many crazy experiences. But we have that power that he has, or she has, inside of us at the same time. That little spark has. We are not aware of it for the majority of our lives, or many of us never become aware of it. And it's not us anyway. We are not our thoughts. You and I also have a mutual love for actualize.org. And so I would love to talk about some of his stuff. His videos are fantastic on enlightenment and finding your purpose. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah. I actually just watched his last one about
what is reality. Yeah, I would, and I was going to get your thoughts on that because it is a little bit different than Transurfing. He's going that's one of his videos where he's really taking it. He's saying we're all sitting in this moment in eternity, infinity. Everything in our past is imagined, everything in our future is imagined, and then everything that we're experiencing is just pure imagination. And our thoughts are really not our own, but we are in this moment. Is that the best way I can? If I was to summarize it in a short sentence, of course, it's an 1.5-hour video, but. Right?
Yeah, but you see, just like Vadim,
right?
He's going much deeper than Vadim, but he also does not reach the point where he grasps the whole thing. But he's very close. He just doesn't.
Very close.
You know what it's like? It's like when you eat a fish and there is this bone in a fish, so you can either remove the bone by holding the center and pulling, and all the bones come out, or you can remove the bones one at a time.
One at a time, right.
What he's doing is removing them one at a time.
Right.
He doesn't get it from the center. Like he doesn't put the whole thing into, like looking from the top.
Right.
He's looking from the bottom.
And I get the taste of that with a lot of his videos. That just it's right there on the edge of it's almost the whole picture. And I think that we get that with Transurfing too, with all this stuff. And I get that with you. You want to go deeper on this, and it's hard to vocalize, but there's something more to it. And I it's just great to talk this stuff over with you. So going back to this, how have you applied? Obviously, when you get some of these realizations, they come to our benefit. And you have mentioned in discussions, everybody loves to say, be in the present moment, be in the now. And you kind of say, that's not entirely true. Be just a little bit ahead of that. Be in the future. I wanted to get...
The present moment is already passed by the time you're in it.
Right.
Yeah, but that's only like a... How do you say? It's only talk. It doesn't mean anything.
It's all talk. Okay.
When somebody comes and tells you, be in the moment, it's just talks. They don't really know what they're saying.
Right.
Yeah, people base their whole books and their whole career on that business of being in the moment, and people buy it because they don't know anything.
Right.
Like they don't know any better, right?
There's
but it
a lot
mean
more
anything. What does it mean to be in the moment?
idea.
You have to be in the moment.
Right, of course.
I am talking to you right now, so if I'm not in the moment, you'll be talking to nobody here.
Right.
Right? Look, I'll tell you, I'll give you another analogy, which is very powerful.
Sure.
Because the only way to really get into these things is with analogies that people can comprehend. Otherwise, I find I lose people. They cannot.
No,
follow.
I think that's why your teachings are so great. That the analogies help us to understand. That's so. Feel free to give us analogies, Shlomo.
I'll give you an analogy about the big picture. You see,
right.
This whole reality is God's dream. Okay, it's like God is dreaming. And this is all happening, and we are just happening to be characters in that dream.
Right.
And how I would, the analogy I would use for you is that if you could step out of this universe, out of this reality, okay, and look at it, what you would see is if you walked into a room where I am sleeping, okay, and I am having a dream that I am on a spaceship and I'm, flying this universe and all these wonderful things are happening to me in my dream. And you would walk into the room and you would see absolutely nothing. You would just see me sleeping.
Right.
So if you were to pull yourself out of this universe, this reality, and look back, this is what you would see. You would see nothing.
Right.
Nothing exists. It only exists for you and me.
Right.
Okay? So if you step out, there is absolutely nothing. The nothingness is still nothingness.
Mm-hmm.
And to follow on that, and this is something that I found out, and I don't believe anybody in the world actually found that,
Okay.
is that when you create something from nothing, which is what God did,
Right.
there are certain things you cannot overcome. It doesn't matter if you are God.
Okay.
Okay?
Right.
There is certain things that you can have it either white or black. You cannot have it both ways.
Right.
And those things, and this is what I refer to the secret on the surface, some of those things are visible in our reality, but nobody can see them because they're on the surface.
Right.
Once you see those things, then the chance that you will actually believe that this is that way is going to be way, way, way higher, provided you are spiritual, because people that believe only in material and nothing else exists, you cannot get through to them.
Right.
But people that do have that ability to believe or feel that there is more, if you show them that, this is actually proof. Because there is certain things, and I'll let you think about it yourself,
Right.
this reality that cannot be. And God, or the supreme intelligence, had a dilemma, because on one hand, he wanted to make us, because he's going to experience everything through us, so he wanted to make us as intelligent as possible. Because
Right.
the more intelligent we are, the more and better experiences God is going to have. Because if we were snails, like he says in Tufti, right?
Right.
The experience wouldn't be that great.
Right.
So you have to be really sophisticated for God to have a good experience through you. But the other side of it is that if he makes you too sophisticated, you will see those things and you will realize that this is all a game.
Right.
Somewhere in between, this is where we are.
Right.
Because as soon as you cross that threshold and you realize that this is not real, it's like you watch a movie about the Middle Ages and all of a sudden you see a bus in the background. Somebody forgot to take it out of the, right?
Right.
This is exactly how this is here.
Exactly.
There are certain things are like that bus. You look and say, this cannot be.
The
and
mirror
it's right
doesn't.
in front of your face
Right.
and you don't see it.
Right. It doesn't want us to know that the mirror doesn't want us to know it's a reflection, or comes back to us in a different way. Just exactly like it wants to. We constantly see our ideas and emotions manifested around us, but it's never exactly like we want, because the universe doesn't want us to know that that we have. Does that make sense? Do you think there's a point where you have realities that start to form in your life, but they're not exactly like you manifested, and the universe almost does it that way? It doesn't want you to know that it doesn't want you to know that it's perfect. Am I making sense?
But it's not true. Look, you decided to talk to me on this podcast, right?
Right.
You decided, I don't know when, maybe a few days ago, right? So you decided to create a certain reality, and here it is. It's not distorted, and it's exactly how you
Right.
decided. You created the
Right.
reality. The universe didn't change anything for you.
Right. But if people started imagining silver Mercedes and they showed up 3 days, constant basis, then it would become really obvious. The universe wants to manifest.
No. But there's a difference between imagining and actually doing it. That's the difference. And this is what Vadim is telling you as well. It's
Right.
not enough to imagine it. You imagined it, but then you
Experiencing
took
it.
action and you did it. You called me. You said, look, would you do a podcast with me? I said yes. And here we
Right.
are right now. So you created that reality, but you acted to create it. If you
Right.
sit there and you imagine some silver Mercedes, it doesn't mean anything.
But if you're right, I understand the distinction. So just to talk a little bit more, you have a website, shiftingreality.com, and you also had and I still, because the video you had on the healing olive, I didn't, because I didn't quite understand. I loved it. And you might be having one in the future. I wanted you to explain that a little bit. You had, I didn't quite understand that. So you had.
I will put it together for you.
Okay.
You see, it's exactly like what I just told you about the silver Mercedes and the podcast. What's the
Right.
difference between them? The difference is one is with action and one is with no action.
Right.
So up until 3 years ago, I did everything in my mind. So there was no action. I just built all these philosophies and I had all these, understandings, but I didn't do anything with it.
Right.
And I said to myself, it's time to actually go and do something physical to see if the things I'm thinking about are correct,
Right.
or am I going in the right direction? So what I did, I created this project called Healing Olive, and the site is healingolive.com.
Healingolive.com. Okay.
Yeah. And I said something like that. I said, I will send to anybody that wants a little bottle of oil with instructions what to do with it, not to drink it.
Right.
I will not charge anything. I will absorb all the cost, including shipping, and I'll limit the quantity. I will do only this many.
Right.
Okay, it won't be unlimited because I don't have the money to do it unlimited.
Right.
And I said that anybody that is going to send me a picture of themselves, current picture,
Right.
and their information, address and everything, and that was all on the site. You could leave everything on the website.
Right.
Will receive this oil. And I had around 400 people over a period of 2.5 years. And I would say that over 80%, and there was a feedback mechanism. So they received an email every month to come and report what happened to them.
Right.
For 6 months. I told them, this is the deal. You get it for free, but in return, you are going to come for 6 months and give me feedback.
Right.
That was like
Perfect.
And
yeah.
I guess my mistake was that I buried the feedback into the website. It's very hard to find. They have to go. It's all like, there's 400 feedbacks, and they are all like in a linear line. It's very hard to dig. But I've seen every single one of them as they came. And I would say that probably over 70% came back and said, Shlomo, you changed my life.
Wow. That's awesome.
That's huge. That's huge because if it's statistically, if 10 people or 20 or even 50 came and said, well, okay. But I have very, very powerful, I have people that, cancer stopped. I have people that couldn't see and they started to see. I mean, crazy stuff.
Awesome. That's amazing.
Totally crazy stuff. And I never did anything with it. It's still there. Now I'm going to do something. But I'll give you like an example. One of my best friends here in Vancouver, which is also, he's spiritual a bit. And he came home about a year ago from a trip. Somebody let them use their house on one of the islands, and they brought home these bed bugs.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And the whole
that can be rough.
bedroom was infested, and the wife didn't want to sleep in the house, and so on and so on. And I said, let me send you the healing olive, see what happens. So I sent him I brought it actually to him. He lives in Vancouver. And after 3 days, there were no bugs. I mean, this is like for real. After 3 days, he didn't do anything. He was going to bring these dogs to sniff it and some gas into the house. Like, you cannot get rid of these things. And after 3 days that he used the healing olive, the things disappear.
So you're placing your intention with the oil, or is there a process that you're going through?
What happens, and that was the experiment, because I wanted to see, I said to myself like this, I have a purpose. I want to change the world, right?
Right.
Now, I cannot change the world. It's that supreme intelligence that has to do it. If that supreme intelligence doesn't want to do it, then I'm just banging my head on the wall, right?
Right.
So I said, well, how do I find out if the supreme intelligence actually supports me? Let's do this experiment. If it happens, I don't do it. I can only refer it to that, right?
Right.
If it happens, it means that I'm going the right way. And I'm also right, at least for myself. I feel more confident that what I imagine is actually true. And this is why I did it. Okay? Now, how does it work, in my opinion, is that, see, when I look at somebody's picture or at somebody's face, I can see the whole essence of that person. I can see their character, their history, their behavior. In 2 seconds, I absorb the whole person. I have this ability since I was a child.
That's amazing.
So when I look at their picture, I find always something good about them that I really like. And when that happens, this is when, even if they didn't receive the healing olive yet, after I look at their picture, the things start to happen to them.
Oh, wow. Right.
So I somehow connect them to the supreme intelligence. Something happens there.
So looking at the results of this, it's amazing. And you may be able to use this idea, like you said, to change the world. beyond just the if we could use our own intentions to help people out. We could create a pendulum of love and peace to overcome some of the stuff that's happening in the world.
You see, you just stumbled.
Okay. How did I stumble? Explain.
Because we just agreed that God wants the bad as much as he wants the good, and you're trying to take the world into the good. Doesn't work.
Well, there'll always be a duality to whatever we do.
It doesn't work because then it's not that experience is going to go. If everybody was nice and loving and good in the world would be the end of the world, as you know it.
Well, we could make it 80% more loving.
No, it doesn't work. There is a balance. It's
always going to be a 50-50 yin-yang proposition for the rest of... okay.
I'll put it to you this way. Since, I don't know how long ago, since there was 1,000 people in the whole world, until today where there's close to 8 billion, the ratio between the type of characters never changed. So what I mean by that is if we have 3% Hitlers, and 7% Mother Teresa and 20% whatever, that ratio never changed and never will change because this is the balance of this world. If that changes, the end of the world.
Really? So we can't adjust can't there be a shift, a higher vibration that is less angry and violent?
No.
Can't we move to a higher energy vibration that limits some of those lower energies? Isn't it just a matter of energy or vibration?
No, you cannot change that. And I'll tell you how you're going to change it.
Okay.
This is the whole thing that most people, not most, everybody that ever tried to change the world, and many people did an excellent job. I know in Judaism and in other, like if you look at Jesus, forget the religion, right? But
forget the religion. Just look at the results.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, there are no results. You think there are results. There are no results. There's only more rules, but there is no results.
Right.
And what happens is people cannot be changed. Okay. You, Brian, since you were 2 years old, since you know yourself, you are the same.
I'm the same.
You are nice. You will never hurt anybody. You never killed any animals. You were always soft. And if you are angry, you kind of manage that. You never exploded at anybody, even though inside maybe you were boiling. So that character you have, it never changed. Since you were a child, you are the same today. You just learned more, and you are older, but you didn't change. So people cannot be changed unless they go through a crisis, which is very rare. So how do you change the world?
How do we change the
world? Only way you're going to change the world is by changing what people are after. What's cool. That's the only way you're going to change the world. So today, people are after money, power. Everybody wants to be successful. And what does it mean, successful? It means I'll have enough money to do whatever I like, to buy an apartment for my child, and I want my kids to be lawyers, doctors, whatever is in fashion today. I don't know. Maybe a digital. So this is what people are pursuing today. And people are selfish. That also cannot be changed. So as long as this is what they pursue, they will always step on somebody else and to pursue their own thing. So you cannot change that. How you can change it is by changing what they're looking for. If you can change what's cool, and they will not be chasing this, then you will change the world. Because then you don't need to change the people. If you can show, for example, how this world is made up, and how things work, and how you can create reality. If you can take it to a point where you can prove it, you change the world at that minute. At that moment, you change the world. Because then it will not be cool to make money if you know that you can imagine money and it will come to you.
Okay.
Then money loses its value. Then you will start to look for what can you do with this new understanding and power that you got. Because then you will be more like God, right? You will be looking for experiences rather than material. But you don't need to change the people for that. All you have to do is to change how they think. Because reality is created by their thoughts. If you can change how they think, you change reality instantly.
Right.
So that's how you're going to change the world. Don't try to change the people. You're wasting your time.
But we can change the way that people think into a more loving, that it does not embrace hate and anger. You're saying that can't be done. We can change the way that people think.
No, because look, in the 1930s, Germany was the most cultural, intelligent country in the world.
Right.
Okay? Well, as soon as you remove the rules of law, and as soon as the Nazis came and said, you're allowed to kill gypsies and Jews, you're allowed to take their then everybody went back to what they really are. It was always there. People didn't change. They were like that. It's just that the rules keep
allowed them to do what.
Yeah, today we have the same situation. We have certain laws and rules, and we have the police, and we have jail, and da. If you take that away, you will have exactly what happened in the 1930s in Germany.
Right.
Because people didn't change. They are the same people.
Right.
So you say you try to make them laugh. Try to take somebody who, for example, since was a child, is killing animals. That's what the person enjoys. He goes and he kills animals. Can you change that person to be loving?
No. But you can make a law that says he can't kill animals, and he can realize the consequence of it. Then,
that's what we are doing with our system. We just add more and more rules, but those rules are only
can
as
work
good
so
as
much,
people are going to keep them.
That's true.
Right? Because at some point, the way we are going right now with the capitalistic system, again, I have nothing against it, but what we are doing right now, we are marginalizing more and more people that have absolutely no chance in their life to get anywhere.
Don't you think some of those people, if they embrace and understand the reality creation principles, can overcome or put themselves into a different reality?
Yeah, provided you can actually show it to them, you need proof. Is where Healing Olive comes, and this is where my next project also is to make proof. I'm doing right now what I call a drop of youth, and it will be water from a certain source in a little bottle, and when you use it, you will become younger.
All right. Well, my name is on the list.
In appearance, in health, in everything. People will tell you, Brian, you look younger.
I can't wait. That's going to be wonderful.
Okay. So we'll see. This is much more risky for me than the Healing Olive.
No, I get it.
But it was very general.
But I showing people the proof, I think that there's something really, you have a great idea right there. And I like that. And it gives me new ideas in my mind and how we can utilize that. That's wonderful. So I wanted to ask also, because I think we might have shared some experiences. I've written and talked about in my podcast parallel realities. And somebody had said that you had talked about experiencing parallel realities. I wanted to get your take. Have you ever experienced anything that made you think that you had entered into a new or different reality?
Well, I never said anything like that because as far as I'm concerned, there is no parallel realities, there is no parallel universes. There is no different aspects of our reality either. What you see is what you have. When something magic happens, it happens in your reality. It doesn't happen out of your reality. Otherwise, you wouldn't know it.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so everything is here.
Right.
It's just up to you. What do you want to manifest?
Have you ever had
other reality? There's only the reality right here.
Now, you had mentioned the idea that we can't see proof of God. Have you ever had any supernatural thing happen in your life that was so amazing or miraculous that I always ask this question? Have you had something that you've seen or experienced that was so supernatural that you were looking beyond the veil? You were waking up in the eternity archive a little bit.
Yes. Well, yes. I had few of those experiences. But those experiences are only powerful to oneself, because if you tell it to somebody else, they will always find an explanation.
Right.
People read the Bible and they all find an explanation for everything. They say, "Oh, Moses, the sea, there was a wind."
Right.
It's to me, few things happen that there's absolutely no. Again, from my perspective, there's no explanation except the fact that I stepped into. I didn't step. That's not the right way to put it. Like I prefer what you said. The veil just opened, and I saw some things that, to me, it was totally amazing.
But difficult to describe to another human being.
Well,
in your own outer side of.
I can describe, but then it's like right. You can convert it into a gimmick. So rather not get into it.
I love that. So I've asked all my guests. Because I'm a collector of this, and especially if you are fathoming and understanding reality creation, reality transurfing, do you have a morning routine when you wake up in the morning that you abide by, that has helped you or changed anything in your life?
Well, my morning routine, I wake up and I hated that I wake up. I would rather continue to sleep. And then I go,
You and
there's
I
a
are on the
mountain
same
here in
page.
Vancouver. It's called Grouse Mountain. So I go up that mountain every day. It's a 1,000 meters elevation. So I go up and I run down. And then I have breakfast. That's my morning routine.
Do you meditate?
Not really. I don't.
Not really?
I tried a few times. I went to Vipassana twice.
And that's where you sit. You have a whole weekend of complete silence and stillness, right?
Not weekend. You have 10 days.
10 days. Okay. Yeah.
10
Okay.
days. 10 days of silence. Well, you are supposed to do certain things that's called Vipassana. Right. I did not. I just took it as for the silence. I didn't really practice what they are teaching. And it was very good for me. This is where I came to the conclusion on my last one, which is very interesting, is that, people want to be like God. Everybody wants to have the power of God. That's ultimate. Like we all want to have the ability to do what God can do.
Right.
Right? But what people don't realize that the day you will have it, you will stop enjoying life.
Right. It's interesting, but I can see that.
You have to be very careful what you ask for, because God has one big disadvantage over humans. You know what it is?
He's all-knowing. He knows everything that will happen. And
No, not that. No, when he's in you, he doesn't, because he disconnected himself. But what God doesn't have and you have is the ability to live the game.
Right.
You can live at any time you want. You can go and commit suicide. You can, God cannot get out. This is forever. Now, imagine, would you want to be in something like this forever?
Right.
It's scary, isn't it?
Do you think at some point God tried to have someone else kill him? I mean, I read a story once. It was fathoming the idea of infinity. And at some point, after 20 trillion gajillion years, he creates the devil to try to kill him because he can't figure out a way to get out, and it never works. But
God cannot create anything besides God.
Anything besides himself.
No, and he can never die, because
he can never die.
Death is something that only happens when you are material.
Right.
If you are just a thought or just a consciousness, how can you die? You cannot die.
That's true.
The concept of death does not exist.
Right. So just at the end here, a couple fun questions. I always like, do you have a favorite movie?
Matrix.
The Matrix?
Yeah.
Do you have a movie that I probably haven't seen as a movie buff?
No, I'm not a movie person. I haven't seen a movie in many years. I don't really watch movies.
Okay, that's cool. And do you have a favorite book? Other than, we've talked about reality transferring, but is there a book that you really love that you might recommend that I read?
You caught me off guard. Like
well, there's a lot out there.
I'll give you a good book. It's called Thoughts Are Things.
Thoughts Are Things. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if you read it. It's an old book. I think it was written in the 1800s. But it's very, very, very powerful. It's actually a reality transurfing, but in a different way. I think it's actually more powerful.
Okay. All right.
He says in there one thing. You probably saw it. I quoted it a few times on Facebook. Is that he says that you don't slow down because you get old, but you get old because you slow down.
Because you slow down, right? Do you think we could overcome our aging and live if we transcended our beliefs and live for? I mean, they did it biblically for 200 years. That our thoughts are creating our own aging process. Do you think we can overcome that?
Well, I couldn't really answer that question, because I think what happens is that you can do anything. I have this analogy with the line, that I show a line and then say anything that's below the line and it's normal to you can make it happen. Anything that's above that line, it's an imaginary line in your mind, then you cannot do it because you don't believe it can be done. I think there is a limit to that, because I think in the rules of this reality, the way God set them up, certain things cannot be done, because you will break you will smash this whole show.
Right.
So, for example, you cannot make the sun all of a sudden come closer or move the moon away, because if you do that, then it's game over. So maybe the aging is one of those things that it's set in such a way. It's like in a computer. You have ROM and you have RAM. ROM you cannot change. It's read-only memory. And you have RAM, which you can write and read. And maybe this is in ROM and you cannot change it.
Well,
I don't
maybe
know.
we can. There's a feedback loop that like he's talking about, where we're creating our own aging process because of the expectation of aging, and at some point, maybe a small percentage of people will be able to overcome or trick this feedback process. I don't know, but I agree with you. It may be just a part of the laws of the universe. But
Yeah, I couldn't. I
Right.
don't know. I couldn't answer that question.
So I love this conversation, and this has been great. It's already been 55 minutes. Seems like we've only
Wow.
been talking for a couple of minutes. And I'm sure that I'm going to remember some great stuff to talk about after this. But I just wanted to thank you for this conversation and being gracious enough to spend your time with me. And everybody, it's healingolive.com. And
Yeah, that's already closed. I don't
That's
do that
already closed.
anymore. The new one is going to be probably in the next couple of weeks. It's called dropofyouth.com.
dropofyouth.com.
Yes.
And you can also catch Shlomo on Facebook. And it's just been a pleasure to finally get a chance to meet with you other than just the digital world. And hopefully we can do it again. And welcome to the Reality Revolution. And thank you so much.
Thank you.